Blog Talk Radio.
It's Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, on the Blog Talk Radio Network. Once again, it's time for the most intriguing talk radio on the internet today. This is Sasquatch Radio. Breaking news and information from around the world. Interviews with men and women investigating the mystery. The latest high-tech equipment. Cutting-edge research techniques. And amazing discoveries. Real-life people sharing real-life encounters. The director and founder of Sasquatch, Washington, Virginia. Here is your host, Billy Willard. Something is out there in the dark, watching, waiting. It's time to unleash the beast. This is Sasquatch Radio.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Sasquatch Radio. Today is Monday, March the 1st, 2010, and I am your host, Billy Willard, and I'd like to welcome my co-host, the great Mike Killen. How you doing, Mike? Did I lose Mike? Uh-oh.
You can't hear me.
There he is. Now I hear him.
Okay. I heard you the whole time, so I don't know what happened. Little glitch, I guess.
Stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
How are you tonight?
Good. I said I'm fine. I said the question is, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling a whole lot better. I finished my second course of steroids, and I believe it's finally out of my chest. Now I'm just got the small remnants left, and I guess in my throat and kind of head, I guess. But, I feel a whole lot better. I can't tell you how much better I feel.
Well, that's good to hear, because you were under the weather for a while there.
I'll tell you what, it was getting just a little bit spooky there for a while, but yeah, I'm feeling a whole lot better, and thank you for asking. So, anyway, before we get the show underway, I wanted to again mention. Let me pull this up real quick just so I can make sure that I'm giving everyone good information here. I want to remind everyone, as we're going to all the way up until May, I want to remind everybody about the 22nd Annual Bigfoot Conference and Expo going on up in Salt Fork State Park, May 14th through the 16th of this year. Since we last talked about it, there has been someone added to the lineup, and I wanted to mention that. We now have Bob Gimlin coming. We have Larry Lund. We have Tom Yamarone, and just added now is we got John Horrigan. So those gentlemen will all be at the 22nd Annual Bigfoot Conference that's taking place at Salt Fork State Park. The actual conference will take place on May 15th, and it typically starts around 4 p.m. in the afternoon and lasts usually until about 10 p.m. There will be a dinner break. Admission-wise, there's going to be a $5 donation required at the door, which isn't bad at all. Just so everyone knows, there's typically a lot of things to see. People usually bring footprint casts, and there's even things that you can buy, T-shirts, coffee cups, whatever's got a picture of Bigfoot on it's usually there. Books, auction items. They'll have like auctions in between the breaks where you can buy items as long as you can get yourself ahead of Henry May, you'll be fine.
Yeah. You have to outbid Henry to have any chance.
Yeah, so, if you can, get somebody to, kind of just derail him a little bit out back or something, out in the back of the hall, during one of the auctions.
Duct tape him to a chair in another room. At the start of the auction, just duct tape him to a chair, that's all.
That's it.
Get a couple of your friends together, and you two can actually come home with some stuff from the auction.
Oh, that's right, JC. Also, I heard Dr. Meldrum was going to be there. That's right. JC just reminded me. Dr. Meldrum. He hasn't put it up yet on the website for some reason, but I also heard that.
I was going to say, I thought he was working on that, but I don't think it was a done deal just yet. I heard that he was working on that angle, though, trying to get the Dr. Meldrum.
I don't see it printed yet, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe he hasn't put it up yet. But anyway, those got some good people coming there. I'll definitely be there. I attend that event every year because it's just such a good time and just meeting a lot of good folks, and that makes it all the more fun. So, are you going to be there, Mike?
Absolutely. Myself and my partner on the show that we host Tuesdays, Bob Coyne, we're both going to be there.
All right. Very good.
We both booked our rooms already, and we have travel arrangements and everything, so we're there. All
right. Very good. Now, if anyone wants any further information on this conference, if you want to make your calls for reservations at the lodge, or they also have cabins, all of that stuff, you want to go to www.eobic.net. That's www.eobic.net, and then go down to the link that says 22nd Annual Bigfoot Conference. You click on there, and you'll have all the information you need about the conference. And there we go. All right. Now, without further ado, I would like to bring our guest tonight. Our guest is Julie Scott. She lives in Northeast Oregon. She will have a book coming out really soon, probably sometime around late spring, possibly early summer this year. The book is actually about her family's 6-month experiences while she was living on the coast of Washington with Bigfoot in their backyard. So this should be an interesting show. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. So what we'll do is we'll kind of start out the show as we always do, and we'll let you kind of introduce yourself, get everybody familiar with you, maybe a little bit about what you do, and tell us what got you started in this crazy mess.
Crazy mess is right. We were living, my husband and our 2 grown daughters, who are both in their younger 20s, and a granddaughter who's now 5. At the time we moved to the coast, she was 3.
Mm-hmm.
And we were living in eastern Washington, and we frankly got tired of 5 months full of 5 feet of snow. So we started talking and said, we've never lived on the coast because we're from the South. And so we never lived on the coast, probably a whole new life experience. Let's go out there and try it. So we found a place. Now, I can't give away the location. I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah.
But, yes, it's near the ocean, and it's your typical coastal 80-foot trees, and everything is wet all the time, and, it's that kind of very thick rainforest environment. And so we found a place. We decided that, we don't know if we're going to like it out there. Let's just lease the house, and if we like it, the owner really wanted us to purchase it. We said, no, we're not going to do that. Well, let's just rent it for a year and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. Packed up everybody and the dogs and moved to the coast, not knowing a single soul out there.
Right.
Moved out there, and the house was located where you can't see any neighbors, and there wasn't any close neighbors anyway, but we were just surrounded by trees and surrounded by timberland and surrounded by ocean and surrounded by, all those kind of things. Very different feel than we were used to living in Eastern Oregon or even when we did live in Montana.
Right.
So, and we got there and immediately decided we don't like this place. But it was very different. The people are different, the atmosphere is different, and, of course, the environment's different. And so we thought, well, we've signed a year's lease. Let's just see what happens.
Right.
So, so we get there, and things began to happen immediately. I must say immediately. Of course, we didn't know what was going on. And we were kind of Bigfoot fans prior to that. Mm-hmm. We realize now that we have some information and knowledge that some of the things that were happening in Eastern Washington was very probable Bigfoot activity. But we didn't know that.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have those kind of experience, Billy and Mike, that things are going on, but if you don't really know what's going on, you're not going to know it's a Bigfoot. And
right.
So, let's see. So we moved out there, and it was, first of all, very strange. You always felt, this is going to be very cliche-ish, but it's true. You feel like you're being watched.
Right.
You feel like you're being watched in the daytime, and you feel like you're being watched particularly at night.
Right.
And it was strange. And we first attributed it to, I have to say this, the owner was very much into a lot of New Age kind of things, and she did a lot of things. So spiritually speaking, we just attributed it to, okay, it's a strange atmosphere, and she was doing hocus pocus, whatever she was doing, okay?
Right.
And our beliefs, being Christians and followers of Jesus and believing in God as a creator, we understood that there's a spiritual world of good and evil, okay?
Right.
So there was a lot of strangeness going on, and we kept thinking, this is, first of all, our first reaction was, this house is haunted, there's demons
right.
in the yard, and
right.
what is going on,
Right.
And I'm just being very honest. And so we took it from there, and we started hearing some very strange things. Very heavy, two-footed walking.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain something. The house was kind of a tri-level house, and there was an office which was just a few feet off the house, but it was a separate building. And we had a home business, and so we spent a lot of time in the office, and my husband's a late-night person, so he was out there every night till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning
mm-hmm.
when that became the height of activity,
right.
as you know.
Right.
And sitting in a office with 2 big windows and no shades and all that, and you're surrounded by forests, you feel when you're being watched. Not
right.
only watched, but like scanned from head to toe.
Right.
And it's a very odd feeling. We felt like after just weeks there that we had entered some kind of surreal twilight zone or something. I don't know what other words to use, so I'm going to just tell you what we felt like.
Right.
And 3 days after we were there, we're hearing heavy walking. And one thing I have to say about these people, creatures, because I'm not sure yet,
right.
that they send messages to you.
Right.
And they were not pleased that we were there at first. It changed later on. But at first, it was Bigfoot with a bad attitude. Mm-hmm. So they were stomping, and it sounded like they were throwing things in the forest, and they were breaking things, and they were, grunting, and let me say this: the owner before that was a single woman. She lived there by herself for 8 years,
mm-hmm.
and there's no shades or curtains or anything on the windows.
Right. And
she had no pets. Well, we came with 2 dogs. Both of them are Border Collie mix dogs who love to chase. I mean, we used to live in the wilderness area, so, we had black bears and grizzlies and cougars in our yards all the time.
Right.
And didn't bother them the least bit. They thought, oh, fun, and they would run after them, okay?
Right.
Well, we got to this new house, and their personalities changed. Mm-hmm. This is, I'd say, well, go get it. And they look at me like, no way. And they go the other way and run under the house. And then they try to scratch at the door to come in and whimper. And I said, they wouldn't even sleep in their own doghouse outside because it was too far away from we moved it close to the door, the kitchen door, and they wouldn't stay in there. Whatever it was terrifying them.
Huh.
And, so I said, well, something is up. And we listened for about 2 months, not knowing what it was. Although when we arrived in the area, we went, wow, jokingly, Bigfoot must live here. Because it's typical what you think, what you hear. They live in the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
Well,
State of Washington, yeah.
State of Washington, in the rainforest kind of a thing. And it was very, very typical. So, anyway, and we started hearing strange screams and monkey chatter kind of sounds and howls, weird howls. And it's off in the distance.
Right.
Then we heard something that I call the skill saw scream or the tea kettle. And we thought, what in the world is that? And it would be, that sometimes was very close to the house. So what is this? But the constant thing, or the thing that was constant, was this feeling of being watched.
Right.
And it's very unnerving.
Right.
So I said, some of the windows started getting curtains. I don't know. But, no neighbors can see you. I think the closest neighbor was probably a half mile down the road.
Right.
And, besides being surrounded by this big rainforest, we had, they should have named the whole place, Blackberry Lane or something. And there's blackberries everywhere and all that. And, let's see, where can I take this now? That was the end of September. Right. By the end of November, before Thanksgiving, the big turnaround came when our youngest daughter, Rachel, and I had driven up in the driveway, which actually was a circular driveway and went around the whole house.
Right.
And we pulled up in the driveway, and it had just turned dark. We got out. Of course, the dogs ran up, say hi. And as soon as the dogs ran up and said hi, they took off down the driveway. The backyard kind of went downhill some, and then there was all sorts of hills on the side and ridges and all sorts of stuff. But they ran down into the backyard and to the right, and then came a scream that must have been just like 30 feet from us. But remember, it's dark. You can't see the hand in front of your face.
Right.
In that kind of
trust me.
Trees.
Trust me, I visited Washington, and I know what you mean by dark.
It's dark.
Especially
very
in those
dark.
woods, yes. I
very dark, yes. And so it wasn't that far from us, but you could not see anything, but came the loudest scream and I've heard cougars because I told you we've had them in our yards.
Right.
It was a combination of a woman screaming, a cougar screaming, and kind of a primate, apish kind of a scream. That's the best way I can describe that.
Right.
Followed by 4 distinctive ooh, 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 those kind of grunts.
Right.
And the dogs immediately came running back. They wanted no part of that.
Right.
But Rachel and I looked at each other, and we went, Bigfoot.
Right.
And we went in the house. I told my husband what happened. We went down to the office, and we said, we got to see if that really was Bigfoot, because you cannot attribute that to anything. You know how people say once you hear it, you've never heard anything like it before?
Right.
So it's true, and we started searching the internet for Bigfoot sites that had Bigfoot sounds on them.
Right, that's what everybody does.
That's what everybody does, and I'm sure the story is not, abnormal. And we were surprised on one hand, and the other one, oh my goodness, because you have to understand, it became such a, how do I say this? It was a daily, we were living this on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And when we finally admitted that it was Bigfoot, and, I need to back up a little bit. My husband actually saw one before the time we heard this.
At the same area, right? Same problem?
Oh, yeah. He was crouched behind a bush outside one of my daughter's windows, the older one, Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. And that had been the same room as the previous owner.
Right.
Okay? So who knows how many years he'd been sitting there. Well, not continuously, but you know what I mean. He knew where to look. Right. And there's a house full of females. And so my husband saw his face, just the face and the eyes. And, but until you know that you know that you know, sometimes you go, I'm not quite sure yet.
Right.
So after we heard the sound, after living there for 2 months, the scream, and finally admitted, the whole family finally admitted each other, okay, well, we have Bigfoot, Bigfoots in our yard. What are we going to do about this? Are they dangerous? Are they going to come after us? We have a little 3-year-old granddaughter at the time. Mm-hmm. Is she safe? I mean, a lot of questions seriously go through your head.
Right.
So we started emailing Bigfoot organizations, help. And we get funny responses like, well, it's, we're getting into winter now. If they're still there in the spring, let me know. Well, we need help now because, this is kind of spooky. In fact,
they didn't want to get cold.
Yeah, right. Sometimes it got very scary because of the unknown.
Right.
The more, and of course we heard the rock knocking. You don't know what the sounds you're hearing until you start getting educated. Can I say it like that?
Well, no, I mean, you have to experience it. It's. And I know exactly what you're talking about with the rock clacks. I mean, when you're out in the middle of the woods and there's no one around you, and you start hearing something down there clacking some rocks together.
Yeah. Hitting trees, screaming, moaning, grunting. You just never know. So, let's see. What happened after that? So it was actually, for the next month, right up to Christmas, there was a lot of activity. We don't know what in the world we were doing. But I started keeping notes because I thought, a little journal, which now turned into the book that is in the publishing process. Yep. Because I thought this is something very unusual. Like I said, we felt like we were living in the Twilight Zone. Right. And what's going to happen, I don't know.
Right.
So we finally got a hold of, the day after Christmas, again, I'm not using real organization names and I'm not using real names. Okay? Right. We're going to leave all that out. And I did the same thing in the book. Right. For reasons that would become understandable if you read the book. But anyway, a local group of investigators showed up very eager the day after Christmas. Mm-hmm. It was the first response we got. And they assured us, there was 6 of them or something. They were so excited, and they said, first of all, we want to let you know you're not crazy, because everything that we were telling them. And so they began to tell us of the other accounts of people in the area that had contacted them and also told them. I forgot this very important thing. Let me back up for a second. The day after the night that Rachel and I heard that very first scream, And as a family, we're gathered around the the internet, saying, "Listen, this is what it sounded like. This is what it sounded like." So my husband, brave man that he is, goes out on the deck the next day, and 4 separate times lets out these big ape sounds, and receives, every time he does it, 1 or 2 responses from different areas. Right. And Rachel and both daughters heard them. I was in the office. I did not hear the responses. But 4 times he did it, 4 times he received a response. Right. So they were back and forth with us at this point. And, my daughters would sing. They were in the choir, and they're very musical. There's a balcony on part of the house. Every evening, almost every evening, Billy and Mike, when we were there, they'd go out and they'd sing. Mm-hmm. And they'd, hit the rocks together and everything. And I cannot tell you how many nights, not every time, but many times, they would receive rock knocking back, or wood knocking, or growls, or chatter, or howls, or whatever it was.
Now they would be doing the singing and everything inside.
No, outside.
Oh, it's outside. Okay.
Yeah, they were outside singing.
Okay.
Music soothes the savage beast.
Right.
It seems to be true because my husband also played. They were out there between my husband and the daughters. They were playing the Irish whistle, the flute, and my husband plays guitar. Mm-hmm. And they would play these musical instruments. And again, I have to express this strongly without sounding very strange. You had a sense. That's the only word I can use. You had a sense that they enjoyed it. Right. There was some kind of communication at this point. As the story goes on, there was other types of communication, which I'll tell you in a little bit. But they seemed to like the music. It did. They send off these signals. That's all I can tell you. Right. So anyhow, get back. So the investigator said, there was a gravel pit maybe a quarter of a mile down the road, right, which I have come to find out that there's been a lot of sightings having to do with gravel pits across the country. Nobody knows quite why. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, rock quarries, yes.
Okay. So, there was a big male spotted at the gravel pit, a lady 2 miles down the road, broad daylight. They had just bought the house, her and her husband. She walks out the backyard, and at her tree line, there was lawn and there was a tree line. In broad daylight, there was a big male standing there then. Of course, she tried to convince her husband, let's sell the house and get out of here. Terrified her. Right. A couple months down the road, one of the investigators, which I will call Joe, because he was the main investigator, Joe was just traveling around the neighborhood and happened to pick up a girl, a hitchhiker, a young woman, I should say. Right. And the young woman, she was the one that she was like our closest neighbor. And they had goats out in front of their house, and she lived there with another woman who she said had problems sleeping, was out smoking her cigarettes, in the middle of the night. And so Joe just happened to ask her, so, you like living here? Is there anything strange that goes on around here? And she just looked at him very strangely, said, well, now that you mention it, we hear all these people walking heavily in the woods in the middle of the night. She said, we don't understand this, and we always feel like we're being watched. Right. So the stories keep going on, and there's a lot of other sightings, screams and footprints and et cetera, et cetera. Right. So when they showed up and they said, well, okay, you're not crazy. There have been Sasquatch sightings in this area. made us feel a whole lot better.
Right.
And from that point on, now we're 3 months into this.
Right.
And almost daily something was happening, whether it was at nighttime, during the day, it didn't matter. And one of the things that we attributed this to is our little 3-year-old. We call her the Bigfoot bait.
Yeah.
Because she's there was up in the just outside the kitchen, there was a little hill you go up there. It's all in the deep trees now, but there was a big tire swing attached way up high. And you get her on the tire swing, and she'd play outside with Mom for hours every day. And she's just a very vivacious, happy, loud 3-year-old. And I am convinced from what I saw, and then afterwards from what I read, that these Bigfoots are very attracted to children.
Mm-hmm.
And the curiosity of it, maybe because they're in family groups and they think so highly of their own kids, I don't know. We never felt, though, like we were in danger.
Right.
There's a few times I was terrified.
Right.
Because, well, we can get into the whole infrasounds thing later on, but but that point on, the day after Christmas, there was a continual, almost continual group of people coming out, hiking around, looking for footprints. Well, we saw footprints. That's one of the reasons we have pictures of them.
Right.
We have video of them. We have a video of what we feel is a Sasquatch shelter, which is actually up the hill in a big meadow area. There was a 4-foot stride, a footprint, pictures taken up there, a couple of them.
Right.
We've just seen lots and lots of footprints. Although it was in the snow, it really wasn't in the mud, so as far as casting goes, it was kind of impossible, and we didn't know much about that at that time. Right. So then came the cameras. That's a whole nother story. Because the situation changed. The cameras appeared, and the Bigfoot seemed to back off a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not telling you anything new that you haven't already heard, I'm sure.
No, this is all,
Yeah.
When the electronics become involved, that seems to be the point in time when these things decide to disappear.
Well, there's game trails all in these woods. And one day we go up there and see the footprints just clear as a bell, going down the game trail. Said, okay, well, let's move the camera, The guys would come out, they'd move the camera, put it right there, and then the next day you go up, and there's no footprints anymore going the game trail, but they're off in the bush to your left or something. Mm-hmm. And you'd find hair samples, and you'd find broken twigs and something. They avoided the cameras.
Right.
And so, I had somebody ask me, well, do they know what cameras are? I don't think they know what cameras are, but they have a sense of those. Was it the infrared? See, I'm not really quite sure about all this stuff.
Well,
they recognize something.
Right. Well, a lot of people think it's it's a combination of that they may be able to hear the equipment. For example, the digital cameras when you turn them on. I mean, they make a noise that we can hear, so we know. I mean, they hear it. Maybe it's the fact that it's a shiny object, and maybe they have. They've been around a long time. Maybe they know a shiny object sometimes has a thing that comes out of it that kills things.
Right, right.
Who knows?
Like the eye of a camera might look like the eye of a rifle, right?
Right. Who knows?
Okay. So anyway, we just, from that point on, things changed a bit, and the cameras kept moving. Sometimes there'd be 4 of them, sometimes there'd be a half a dozen, and they'd be all over the place. And there's so much to tell, but I'm trying to. I gave you the beginning in a sequence. Now I'm just going to give out information, and I can't tell you what order it was in. Okay? But did I ever personally see one? No, I did not.
Okay.
My husband saw the amber eyes 3 times, and actually saw, saw the Bigfoots twice.
Okay.
Our daughters saw the Bigfoot hiding behind a tree with its little eyes, big eyes looking at him. And that very next day, the investigators came out, took hair samples for exactly where they saw, the girls saw them, and there was the moss that was on the trees was like dented in, like where they would be leaning or something, and that's where the hair samples were. Right. So everything was very consistent. One of the game trail cameras did take a picture one time, but we had 3 straight days of the worst fog I've ever seen in my life. Right. And that is during the time of the fog that my husband actually saw one walking, because the porch light was on, so it kind of illuminated on the driveway, and he saw it walking through the very end of the light going up the hill across the driveway. And the picture, when the girls saw the Bigfoot face in between the 2 trunks of the branches of the tree, and saw the eyes and everything, got a pretty good clear picture. Not of a camera, but
right.
Okay. That was a foggy night, and the picture that was taken by the trail cam was taken in the fog. And so, but if I were to just hand you this picture, well, I don't have it, because it then became the property of the investigators.
Right. Right.
So, and they didn't want to share. So, you wouldn't probably see a Bigfoot in the picture.
Right.
But if I would say there's the teeth, well, you might. Well, you might, because you know what you're looking at. But just anybody might not see it. But once you said, oh, there's the outline, there's the face, there's the shoulders, then you begin to see very distinctive. It was gritting its teeth or baring its teeth or whatever you want to say.
Right.
It got caught on camera. I didn't like it.
Right.
So, but they got pretty bold in the fog, and
well, they probably felt they could move around, pretty elusively at that point. I mean, you, obviously some of that fog up there gets pretty thick. You can't see,
That's
10
true.
feet in front of you. So.
Well, out back there's a group of outbuildings. There's all together. There was kind of a chicken coop and a wood place for the wood pile and a small greenhouse, and there's a 2-story, not as far as houses go, but it was more of like a shed. We called it a goat shed, and it was more like a storage area. It's probably 12 feet tall, right. Maybe 11 or 12, and the dogs went barking out there many times, but one night they went barking and they stopped, and I said, get away from there, because I figured it was a Bigfoot just around the corner, and I heard it growl and try to get the dogs away, and they did. Sometimes they got a little bold, the dogs, but not too much, as long as they were together. Right. But if you separate them, But, and then during one of those times in the nighttime, my husband saw the amber eye stick its, coming around the corner, and he kind of measured it with his eyes, if you want to put it that way, how high up it was with the doors of the shed there. And then the next day went back, and it was 9 feet. So that was pretty consistent with. Yeah. They grow them big on the coast.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So, anyway, there's lots of other stories I can tell you. Do you want to just ask me some questions, or you just
I'll tell you what we'll do. we'll give you a little bit of a breather, and I'll go to these phones and see if these people are just listening in or if they've got a question.
Okay.
So let me, I think this first one here is a Skype caller, and it may be Abe. Skype caller, is that Abe?
It's me, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing good. Thanks for asking. Glad to hear your pneumonia's clearing up and getting better.
Oh, yeah. I feel much better.
That's good. I do got a question. I was wondering how would one, does she have a link or anything where we could get a hold of her book when it comes out, or any contact information for the book?
I don't have a link right now. Ideal Arbor is our publisher that did Valley of the Skookum and, a few of the other ones.
Okay.
So I don't have a publishing date right now. What should I do about that, Billy?
Have you already named the book, Julie?
Well, we're tossing.
Okay.
So it could be something like Amber Eyes, Bigfoot's Watching Us.
Okay.
Something of the sort. But we haven't totally decided that. We're going back and forth with the publisher on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked around your property in the woods behind your house or alongside it or whatever? And if so, have you ever noticed any type of tree formations or stick structures?
Well, that was all something new for us. When you get in that rainforest kind of thing, there's so much, what do I want to say, forest garbage. I mean, there's just sticks and things everywhere, branches, moss, everything like that. Never noticed, once we started learning what it was in that thick environment, it was very difficult to tell if there was something specific as a stick formation. And we actually learned more about that after we moved.
Right.
So,
okay.
I can't really answer that right now, but...
So the only thing that you had found was what you thought was a nest.
We found what we thought was a shelter,
okay.
And it was made out of very large branches and thin branches, and it was opened on both sides, and it was dug out, and then next to it was another space that looks like they started to dig it, which was like 4 feet by 3 feet by 4 feet deep, which is not very big, but like I said, maybe they started to dig it.
Right.
But what happened, and we found, well, my husband found a lot of footprints going all the way up to the shelter and around it and everything. But as soon as it was discovered, and then the investigators started spending more time up there, and human presence became,
abundant.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
They're smart animals, people, whatever they are.
Yeah.
They're very smart, and they closed up the sides of the shelter and quit using it, to our knowledge.
Right.
So there was no more footprints up there. Of course, it's on the coast, so when it was like the worst snow they've had in decades, and but it melts fast.
Right.
And then you have hard ground even after that. So we saw some footprints in mud, or in the dew, but we really didn't see after the snow went. Even if you get 6 inches, it's gone in a couple days.
Right.
So anyway.
Oh, going back to the shelter, did it look kind of domish, kind of like an igloo, but made out of vegetation and had 2 entrances?
It had 2 entrances, yes, and it was kind of a dome shape, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thanks for answering my questions, Billy. If you'd like to just mute me so I can continue to listen, I'd appreciate that.
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then now I'll go ahead and let Mike, because I know Mike's got a ton of questions waiting, so we'll let him take the first one, and then I'll take the next caller.
Okay.
All right, you want to do that? Okay.
Yeah.
Don't have a ton, but we have 1, 2, 3. We have 5 questions anyway.
Okay.
To start. First one is from our friend Bill Green. and he's asking Julie, she kind of already mentioned that, but his question says, what is the title of your new book, and are you investigating other sightings from neighbors? Any activity in that area, I guess.
Well, let me answer it this way. Bigfoot did not run us out of where we were living because we found it very intriguing. In fact, you know how it is. You become obsessed almost.
Right.
But we didn't like the area. And the investigators that we were working with were very excited about it.
Right.
So after we lived there 6 months, after 6 months, they subleased our house, and they stayed on. The investigators moved into the house, and they stayed on for 6 months until the lease was over. And they were ready to purchase the house if there was enough activity. But you know what happened. We left, and the activity went down to almost zero.
Mm-hmm.
I say almost. There was some,
right,
because one of the investigators was a woman, and we'll call her Barb.
Okay.
And Barb was actually living in the house, and she had feeding stations out, and she had cameras all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And she had very little. She had some activity, but very little. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, you know how they say you don't find Bigfoot, they find you.
Right.
We feel it was a real gift, even though it was really weird, and our family and friends, they just thought we were really weird. But they kind of took a liking to us, I think, and kind of adopted us as a family, and we know they really liked our granddaughter.
Right.
So, and when all that left, all of us left, which I'll tell you a little story about the day we left was really amazing. But they basically went away, or they were very quiet. Let's put it that way.
They may have been interested, in y'all for a particular reason, and even the children, of course, and probably this lady investigator you're talking about, I'm going to assume she didn't have any children or anything. It was just her.
No.
Yeah. No. All right. So, all right, Mike, it's my turn. I'm going to take the caller at area code 304.
Hi, Billy. How are you? Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you very much, Nancy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I did have one quick question for her. Did she have any audio? She lived there 6 months. Did she have any audio or any of this?
Yes, we did. We had audio. Let me put it this way. One night the investigators came out, and there's a bunch of them, and they were traipsing all around that whole area, and they went up on the hill after it got dark and started hitting the trees and with a baseball bat, and then they had some kind of horn. I can't even tell you what it was because I didn't see it. I was down at the house. I heard it. But the response came, we got a lot of responses from directly across the street from our house. It was a big, huge wooded area that went into more timberland, et cetera, et cetera. And there came a howling. Now, I heard coyotes. Coyotes, when they howl and they kind of more yip, they kind of sound like they're insane,
Right.
This was a howl, and, honestly, I don't think there's wolves that live in the area that we lived in. But there was a howling that came back as a response several times. It was recorded, and it was taken in for analysis. They analyze it by what? The megahertz that it's at, or something like that. I'm not quite sure.
That would be a question for my buddy DB. He does that kind of analysis. But they listen to different frequencies and things that are comparable to other animals.
And they said it was not a coyote and it was not a wolf.
Okay.
And another audio that we did was months later, because I can tell you that was on New Year's Eve. I know everything that happened, what dates a lot. Months later, right before we left, one evening, it started again. Same kind of thing, and we recorded that. We did not have that checked out. But that went on and on for like 30 minutes and then be quiet and for like 15 minutes, and then it started. And that went on and off for about 3 hours.
Wow.
And since we're talking about that, let me tell you what happened, because it's the same thing. The day we moved, which was almost a year ago, this is pretty recent.
Okay.
The day we moved, it was last March, we had the U-Haul and the pickup and the van, and, we're all lined up, and we're talking to Barb because she's taking over the house and all that, and it's broad daylight, and we were in the driveway just about to pull out, standing around the cars, and out of the blue, this has never happened before during the day. The howling, that kind of howling, always was at night.
Okay.
And we're about ready to leave, and that howling across the street, same place we've always heard, that particular howling, they started howling. And honestly, we got choked up because we had, as weird as it sounds, some kind of strange relationship going on with these creatures. And as long-term witnesses, I call short long-term witnesses, but nobody can tell any of us that was not specifically by,
Right.
And we believe that. To this day, we believe this. And even our little granddaughter believes that, and she's still at 5 years old, goes up into the woods and gives her whoop whoop.
Right. Right.
So, but anyway, that howling is very unusual. One time, I have to tell you this, speaking of howling, it's a different type of a howling, but you know how dogs kind of howl with sirens from fire engines or ambulances or whatever?
Right.
But you can, there's a certain kind of sound they make. And one time, an ambulance went past the house, and there was a response, a mimicking, if you want to say that. It was not a dog.
Right.
And it very well could have been a Bigfoot, since we've come to understand, they do mimic a lot of things. And he mimicked an ambulance going by. And anyway, that's the howling things. And yes, we did get it on tape, and yes, we did have it analyze some of it.
Okay.
Do you have them anywhere that we could hear them on the internet?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. But maybe
okay.
I can get that set up as the book's coming out or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to do that and let Billy know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have that on computer, or is it like a tape?
Both.
Okay.
There is another person in the Bigfoot community that does have it. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
That maybe we can get him to let us have it.
Okay.
On a website. So.
All right.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
All right, Nancy. You want me to mute you out, Nancy?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. And Mike, it's your turn.
All right. Next question we had came from our friend Alan, Kite Squatch, in the chat. And his question says, did any of her neighbors have any similar experiences?
I don't know. I didn't really talk to my neighbors because they were so far and few between. And here's a funny story. One of the neighbors that was like probably a couple miles down the road, I had put up a sign in a community center in the shape of a Bigfoot and said, if you're having these, this is at the beginning. Later on I took it down, but if you're having, if you're hearing these things, or if you, et cetera, it could be, Sasquatch. And if so, call me anonymously, because I was just trying to get some information. This is before we got a hold of any kind of investigators or anything like that. We needed some answers. This was pretty spooky. And so one of the neighbors called, and him and his wife were ecstatic. We're Bigfoot lovers, and anyway, long story short with that is that this man made didgeridoos. You know what a didgeridoo is?
Yep, sure do.
It's one of those instruments, from Australia.
Yep.
And all sorts of sizes and sounds. And he lent us one for several months, and that was one of the instruments we played up on the balcony. And,
right.
And that's a very strange thing. But anyway, besides the neighbors, I really have never talked to anybody, and I had no response from that Bigfoot sign. In fact, I think somebody got tired of it after several weeks, and they took it down, whoever they are. So
okay.
Anyway.
All right, now it's my turn again. Let's see. Caller from the 419 area code. You're on the air.
That's me, Billy. Just listening in.
All right, Steve. We'll mute you back out, buddy.
All right.
Okay, the floor is yours, Mike.
All right, so we'll get down to the next question here, and this isn't actually for the guest. This is actually for you and I, Billy. This is from Bill Green again.
Okay.
And can you guess what it is?
Probably have we had any sightings, any recent sightings or anything, reports?
Pretty much, yeah. He wants to know if there's any activity in Virginia or upstate New York.
No, I haven't had any activity in Virginia, to my knowledge, other than the most recent stuff, which was a couple 2 or 3 weeks ago. The stuff going on down in the southwestern portion of Virginia in Grayson County.
Yeah, and I still haven't heard anything very recent myself, Bill. So no updates for you, unfortunately, not yet, anyways.
Yeah. You can keep going because I have exhausted my callers.
All right. Okay. Next question. Let's see. This was from Chris Bennett in the chat, and he says, I think she mentioned it, but I grab these questions as they come out of chat, and sometimes they ask the question before the guest will actually talk about it. But I'm just reading them as I capture them.
Mm-hmm.
This is what color was the eye shine?
Like an amber color or orangey red most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember you said earlier in the show that you might possibly title the book,
Amber Eyes.
Amber Eyes. Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. I'll tell you one thing we tried in between questions here. As we learned more and more, it became less scary to a certain degree, but we tried, a gift tree. We put all sorts of fruits and vegetables and my granddaughter's doll with big eyes and candy and necklaces and stuff. But that was like weeks before we left. We were experimenting with all sorts of different things. And again, I believe the cameras hindered a lot of stuff. And we put it in a place where there was no camera, but I still believe that the cameras hindered a lot. I believe if you go back to the same area now, here's a funny story. Let me tell you this one too. The owner did not know what was going on. We didn't tell her. After we moved out and after the investigators decided not to purchase the house, the owner was there with Joe and Barb and the new tenant who was renting to buy the house.
Mm-hmm.
And they were told then what happened, what our experiences were, why they were there, and what had been going on. And the owner said, "Oh, I am not surprised. I felt the 8 years I was living here, I was being watched all the time." Number one. Right. Number two, the new tenant was very excited because he had seen a Bigfoot back in 1970-something, and he was moving in there with his grown adult daughter and a 5-year-old grandchild. And they were hopefully going to continue some kind of investigation in the area because it was very real.
Right.
So that's what happened there. So the gift tree was a flop because we didn't really have enough time to work on it.
Right.
But I've heard other people have had success with it,
All right.
exchanging gifts. So.
All right. Keep on going, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, we had a couple newer questions. So I was just copying them. But let's go in order here. Next question was from KP Morgan in the chat, and this says, question for the guest. What do you feel is your most scientifically valid evidence?
Experience. Because, you can't, how do you deal with, I'm talking particularly like long-term witnesses. I know there's enough scientific evidence just by people who see it in their headlights as crossing the road in front of them. As far as do they exist, of course they exist.
Right.
But what are they about and their origin, that's still a big question mark. And I think that a lot of that has to come from long-term witnesses. And most of them, it's very intimidating. It's very out of the ordinary. There's more and more people you can talk to about, like Billy and Mike or
Right.
Autumn Williams,
Right.
but
Right.
Not used to be. So I think there's been plenty of grandmas have been feeding these big guys for decades, and she's not told a soul. So anyway, I think that's the scientific evidence is
Right.
experience from long-term witnesses.
Did anyone ever share with you any of the results of any hair samples that were collected, or as far as you know, were any of them analyzed?
Yeah, they were analyzed.
Okay.
Unconclusive, there's no conclusion to it.
Right.
It's not ape, it's not human, it's not like everybody
Right.
else's.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah. So.
Keep on going, Mike.
All right. Next question. Let's see. Next question we had was from Spin Dave, and Spin Dave says, "Have you ever?" And I think she covered this, but I'm just asking them as they were asked in chat. This says, "Have you ever tried to feed the Bigfoot scraps of anything? And if so, what kinds of things do they like to eat?"
Well, we had like a little mulch pile that was around the back side of that shed I told you about, so you can't see it. It was over by the chicken coop gate.
Right.
We didn't have chickens. It was just, okay. Looking back now, we should have bought chickens. They would have disappeared one at a time. It would have been fun to watch.
No fair.
So we took the pumpkins, from the harvest from that time of year in the fall, and other things. It was just a mulch pile. But there was pumpkins and oranges and squash and whatever it was. And then we began to notice that mulch pile was decreasing in size. And then one day we went there, and the chicken coop gate was pushed over. It wasn't on there very good, but it was pushed over and it was laying down flat. And so I said, well, I want to be able to see some of this activity, because from the house you couldn't see that because that was behind everything. So I moved some of that mulch pile over. By the very end of the backyard, there was a gate, but the gate was just a freestanding gate. There was no fences or anything. Go figure. I don't know what that was for. So we put some of that there, and maybe some apples on top of which that did disappear. And in its place, maybe this was a gift. I never thought of this until I was writing the book. And my daughter said, well, Mom, I thought of that back then. I said, well, why don't you say something? Because it never entered my mind. The apple and the pumpkins and all those things did disappear. And in its place was a dead bird. Now there's 3 cats in the roaming around this land, and there was a dead bird there Was it a gift given back? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not saying it is. I have absolutely no proof.
Right.
But did I answer that question? What was the question anyway? Food. Oh, feeding them. Yeah, we tried those things. I hear they love peanut butter. There was definitely a presence when I cook in the house, or sometimes we go do it on the bonfire out back, bacon or hot dogs or steak or anything. That seemed seriously to attract them, the smells.
Right.
Like you would if you're camping or something. So.
Right. All right. I'm going to sneak one in here real quick, Mike.
All right, ahead.
Kay Worley had sent it to me by private message, and and they want to know, Julie, if any dogs, as far as you know, if any dogs came up missing in the area.
I never heard of any.
Okay.
And I never felt like our dogs were threatened because they're not aggressive dogs. Oh, they run and they bark, at you, but they're not mean, large, aggressive dogs. I have read thousands of stories of Bigfoot where some of those dogs do get their necks wrung and killed because they seem to be very aggressive.
Right.
But I never felt like our dogs were threatened.
Okay.
Or we were threatened. One night, I have to tell you this story because I'd like to talk about this infrasound for a minute, if we may.
Okay.
That was a real strange thing. It goes along with this, them trying to communicate, or communicating in whatever which way they communicate. But again, I want to be very careful the words I say here because they do have a way of speaking to your mind. And I don't want to say that in a weird, spooky, spiritual way. But I think some people may read that as something paranormal, but it may not be paranormal. It may just be a way of communication. Rachel and Elizabeth were down at night in the backyard. No flash. They were very bold. They used to make me very nervous. And they'd go out in the backyard, and one night they got out toward that back freestanding gate I was telling you, which is past the outbuildings.
Right.
And immediately, they were hearing noises, and they were hearing chattering, and they were hearing things, so they walked back there. No flashlight, nothing. And Rachel, and she wrote this part in the book to explain it. She says it felt like she hit a wall. And what I mean by that is she got so far, and it's like she could not go any further. And she heard in her mind, just want to let you know I'm here. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here.
Right.
Don't come any farther.
Right.
And she had to stop. She physically had to stop. Right. But she was given that message. It wasn't threatening. It was just a matter of fact. Don't come any farther.
Right.
And she turned around and walked off.
Okay.
And she found, Now there's times I didn't have a problem during the day, and I've gotten over a lot of fear because I think a lack of knowledge gives you fear, but the more you understand what's going on, it makes you a little more peaceable. But there's times, just a couple times, I'm telling you myself now here, I'd go to the office, I'd take a dog with me, I'd take a gun with me, and I'd lock the doors.
Right.
Because I needed to use the computer, and I was spooked.
Right.
Because, do you want to explain? I don't want to take anything for granted, but some listeners may not even understand the infrasound thing and what it, in a normal way, what it does physically to a human body.
Well, it can. There have been studies done with infrasound as well as ultrasound.
Right.
They're now learning that ultrasound can almost be more focused and other things, and they're learning a lot more even about ultrasound now. But anyway, as we know, the infrasound is usually the very extremely low frequency, below the frequency that's usually typically heard by the human ear, and it typically affects the inner ear, and it can cause all types of things. I mean, there's studies that show that it can cause, nausea type reaction, disorientation type reactions, trigger
headaches,
fear.
Right.
Yep, headaches. Believe it or not, there's even claims of people experiencing loss of time.
Confusion.
I mean, it does a lot of strange things, right?
And so it does, or it can cause anxiety on the minimal part and a very deep-seated fear and confusion. I've even heard of, governments using it as crowd control or something,
Right.
So I believe many times I experience that, and because normally I'm not a fearful person, and this kind of fear was over and above anything normal, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And I just had to get it together.
Right.
Help, Lord. But they do. Like I said, I believe they send messages to your mind. It's not weird. It's not paranormal. It's just maybe a way of their communication. I do want to throw this in here. Things just keep coming to my mind. And you're right, the 90 minutes does go fast. Do we smell a smell? Skunky, musty, many times.
Right.
Okay, at least 4 or 5 times.
Right.
But not all the time. Smells only came once in a while. Do they have control over that? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know.
Right.
What else?
I'll let Mike continue his questions.
Yeah, we still got quite a few here. Next question I know was answered already again, but I'll read it. This is from Kay Worley, again in chat. The question says, does she still have the audio? And I know she said she does, and that she might eventually in the future make it available online.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We'll work on that. We'll work on that.
Then we have another question from Bill Green, and he says, does Julie have any photos or film footage or anything of the creatures?
No.
Nothing
I have lots of
other
footprints.
Than that.
I have footprints.
Other than that
filters.
one game cam picture that you had mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm,
but you don't have it
right.
in your possession.
No, I don't have it in my possession.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I wish I did. I wish I would have taken a lot more pictures. I mean, just the footprints alone. I mean, it'd be like the dew would be so thick. Of course, remember we're on the coast again. It's a whole different world out there. It's really surreal. And the dew would be so thick, and you go out in the morning, and they'd be tromping through the backyard, and just, we measured some of these footprints. They'd be 16 by 7.
Yep.
And they were very consistent.
Right.
So.
All right, keep going, Mike.
All right. Now there's 2 questions in a row here, pretty much back to back, both asking about the creature that was seen. But I mean, they seem to be asking Julie, but if unless I misheard, and it's possible because I'm reading the chat the whole show, trying to look for questions and comments and stuff. But if I remember right, basically it was your husband and daughters that had the actual sighting?
Sightings. These were different times, yes.
So
my husband actually saw Bigfoot twice, and then saw eyes about 3 other different times.
Okay.
And
but you yourself have not seen that.
No, I did not see. I heard all sorts of things.
Okay.
One night, before you give me the next question, one night my husband and I, it was one of those nights that was actually up at 2 o'clock in the morning with him, we were standing outside, and there came again across the street, same place. I can't describe it. I have never in my life heard anything on a movie, on a documentary, on anything before, since, or it was a grieving moan. That's all I can tell you. Came from across the street. My husband and I were standing outside our bedroom, and the light was on. There's a porch, and it was moaning and grieving, and it was not human. Humans don't do this, and they certainly don't do it that loud. Okay? Right. And then it was kind of like a howl and a moan, and I thought, it gave me the feeling of something's not right. Somebody's grieving.
Right.
I mean, we had some strange experiences. I can't explain most of this stuff, except I know it was real. I know what we saw. I know what we heard. I know what we felt.
Right.
And anyway.
All right. Getting back to those 2 questions. Well, see, I know you didn't actually see it yourself, but
no.
Maybe from talking with your husband and your children, they basically wanted to know if you could describe. Well, the one question says what was the color of the creature? That's from Alley Cats and chat, and then Spin Dave goes on to say, wanted to know, if you could actually make out the features of the creature, like the head, the face, and would you say it was overall more like a human or more like an ape in appearance?
Oh, $1 million question. How many times have you had that one? I'll say yes. Yes to both. Oh, my goodness. Color. Hard to describe, darkish. It's dark outside. All the times they were seen, it was dark.
Right.
So you have to say dark, brownish, okay, at this time. Dark, brownish, blackish, whatever. Features. Well, there's a certain apish look to them because they bare their teeth, both the time in the foggy picture and then when my daughter saw them standing between the tree trunk, the tree branches. Yeah, they showed their teeth, and so I suppose that looks a little monkeyish,
Right.
But what was the other part of that question?
Well, they were asking basically, if you guys got a look at the face. They wanted to know what the facial features look like. The overall body shape.
Mm-hmm. It's really hard to tell because again, it's dark, and some. I've seen pictures or drawings, I should say, drawings. Right. Some have more of a dome head than others. This wasn't particularly extremely dome-ish. Is that a word? But roundish for sure. But it's hard to tell. It's because of it was nighttime.
Yeah, nighttime.
I wish I could be more specific with that, but big eyes.
Yeah. Well, that's
flat nose. Long flat lips.
Right.
Yeah.
It's typical that most people will get a sighting majority of the time at night. So of course, unless it's a full moon and very bright,
right.
Mm-hmm.
unusually bright evening, it's difficult to really get a good look.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. Next question was from Polypodium in chat, and this question says, did the guest say who bought or tried to buy her house? I don't think you did. I think you mentioned that somebody.
It was the group of investigators
was
that
think about
subleased
buying
it for.
and
Yeah, they subleased it for the last 6 months. and they were going to purchase it. I mean, they would have if the activity had stayed at a level that we were experiencing, but of course it did not.
Okay.
So they decided not to purchase it.
All right. I'll assume that you're probably not going to name names because they were taking a guess as to who might have been involved, and they name a specific name. So.
No, I will not give out any names. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if you're entertaining that guess or not. Okay. All right. Next question was from Moicon, and I don't know if our guests. Well, it doesn't say, but I'm assuming this would be for probably for any of the three of us here, and maybe Billy or I might even be a better person to ask, but we'll ask the guests first. This says, what equipment can you personally recommend a researcher just starting out get, and how much can they expect the investment to cost?
I tell you what, the funny part of that whole thing is all the equipment that everyone has seemed to buy hasn't done anything yet.
Well,
we've got cameras, we've got thermal imagers.
You can't say hasn't done anything. I mean, there's been plenty of people that have recorded some unusual sounds. I would say the most important piece of equipment is a recorder, because you're always going to hear a lot more than you ever see, and in fact, some people never see anything. I mean, not a thing, not even find a track, nothing. But yet, sometimes they'll be lucky enough to record some kind of unusual sound. So I would say you always hear much more than you see, and I would think a good quality digital recorder would be the number one piece of equipment you'd want to get as a new researcher. And it goes without saying that you'd want to have at least a still camera to document anything that you might find out there as well. And if you have one, or you can get a hold of a decent video camera as well, that's great too. But most people have digital cameras and video cameras already, most people. So as far as a gear that you might not have, I would say digital recorder would be the most important. And you can get them anywhere from, you get them for cheap for $50 or less, up to $400,000 or $500,000 maybe. But there's no real reason to spend. I don't think when you're starting out, there's no real reason to spend more than really $200. I mean, you can get a really good quality recorder now for under $200. You can get them for $150.
Oh yeah, you can get a decent recorder for under that. I mean, even most of your digital cameras, Mike. I mean, you wouldn't even have to necessarily get a video camera. Most of your digital cameras will shoot video with sound.
Yeah, this is true.
The one that I have does a good job. Sometimes I think it's better with the video, and you can zoom it in just like a picture. So yeah, most of your digital cameras, especially the newer ones, the 10 megapixels, I mean, they do a really good job with video.
Yeah, that's true. The newer cameras are better with the video. I'm thinking like back 5 years ago that you had to kind of get one or the other or both, because the digital cameras didn't take very good movies, and the movie cameras it's possible to take still pictures, but they weren't very good. Neither one could do both well, but yeah, the technology's improved.
Right,
sure.
right. Hey, let me ask you this real quick, Julie. Kay Worley had asked me this back some time ago with a private message. They wanted to know if you ever had anything banging on the side of the house, like to get your attention.
Not that house.
Okay.
Other places where we live now, it's happened a few times.
Really?
But yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we live in a very interesting area, and so very wilderness around us. And I was talking to a local man, and he calls them the monkeys, and he said he's had experiences when he was a kid with his father. And he says, I've seen them 8 times, those monkeys. And he's seen them, he said a he was up in the mountains, and he was camping, and he was with a grandson, or forget the whole story, but the next day 5 young guys came with like big German Shepherd dogs, big dogs, and he said he saw across the lake, this was a lake, across the lake, he said he saw, quote unquote, a Volkswagen-sized boulder being rolled down at these guys. Nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from, you know? But he told me all sorts of stories, and I've heard local people tell me all sorts of stuff about screams out by the campgrounds and things like that. So they're all over the place. They're not just in Washington and Pacific out here. So
okay. Hey, Mike, the 2 callers I noticed have their hands up on the switchboard. You reckon I better check in on them and see if they got a question?
Sure.
We're rolling down to like the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting short in time. We still got 4 questions from chat, and then you got some callers. So.
Yeah, let me just check. I think this is still Abe. Abe, do you got your hand up for a question?
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay.
Julie, depending on the footprints that you've seen at that house, different sizes and such, how many Bigfoot creatures would you say were around that house around that property?
Oh well, it's hard to tell, but there are different sizes, including one. We got some really good pictures of a juvenile one. So obviously, it probably, I should say, is some family of some sort, since it was different size footprints. I can't tell you how many. I have no idea. They are very intelligent, and they're very curious.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Okay. When you said that they bared their teeth, when your daughter's seen that happen, did they describe the teeth as there may be a long fang tooth or a long canine tooth, or were they all pretty squared off?
Pretty squared off.
Okay.
And in the picture too, you can see, even though the fog, you can see them pretty squared off. They have an aversion to lights, porch lights and all that other stuff. And so when we wanted them to come close to the house, we turn off all the porch lights, and we knew that they'd be looking into the TV, because you can see the TV from way out there. So, we put on things like Harry and the Hendersons for their viewing pleasure, and things like that. So.
About their eyes, you said that they were amber colored. Now, did you notice, was there any light source on that could have possibly reflected that color out of their eyes or from their eyes?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. That's all I had, gentlemen. Thank you again, Julie.
Okay,
Thank you.
And then I'll grab this other one, which I think might be Nancy. Is that you, Nancy?
Oh, yeah, I probably pressed it by mistake when I was texting my daughter.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, folks, we're down to the last 2 minutes, so just real quickly, do you mind holding on and going into the archive just a little bit, Julie? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so everyone who's had questions, and I think Mike said there's at least 4 more questions, if you want to listen to the archive portion of the show, we'll go ahead and approach those questions, and then, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight and listening live. Of course, come back next Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have another great guest for you next week, which I will not reveal at this time, but you'll learn about it here real soon. So, Mike, go ahead and continue with your line of questions.
Okay, yeah, we had 4, and there was just another one just typed into chat just now that I was capturing here, so we got 5 questions now. Go in order. The top question I have that we didn't ask yet was from Yams, from Tom. It says, did they seem to come around at all hours? Did you ever have any banging on the house late at night, early in the morning hours while you were asleep?
No, we never did have any banging on the house. No, but they came around during the day and during the night, anytime. More at night. I guess they feel more secure in the dark, but they did come during the day. We heard them all over. We heard them.
Okay.
didn't see them, but we heard them for sure.
Yep. All right. This question you're probably not going to answer, but I'll read it anyway because they asked it. This is from Bill Green again. He says, question to Julie, which Bigfoot research groups came out to you?
Just one. I couldn't get a response hardly from anybody else I emailed, and I can't give the name of that one, but that one worked with, that particular research group worked with other people that weren't even really a part of that, and those people came up from different states, too. So.
Okay.
We had out-of-state people coming up, so.
All right. Let's see here. And we have the next question is from Spin Dave, and he says, did you experience being the target of objects thrown by the creature, by the Bigfoot? If so, were the objects uniform in size, or were they all shapes and sizes?
We never had that delightful experience of rocks or pebbles or anything being thrown at us. Never. They were always very peaceable with us, even when I was feeling terrified. I never felt threatened. Nothing was ever taken. One time I suspect they might have gotten into the garbage, but that was it.
All right.
Yeah.
This is another question from Tom from Yams in the chat. He says, did you ever hear them laugh, or did they do anything playful or prankster-like?
That's a great question. Oh, I don't know if I ever heard them laugh. I heard monkey chatter. And, one just very discouraging thing I have to say is that when we would tell the investigators what we'd hear, probably 9 times out of 10, or I should say the majority of the time, okay? They were very helpful, and they, but I felt like toward the end we had different goals. We wanted more of a relationship. They wanted the pictures. Am I being too blunt?
Right. No.
But they wanted the pictures, and so when we would give them descriptions of what we were hearing, they would say, "Oh, that's an owl," or "That's a bird," or "That's a," and disregarding, I think, that how do I put this? There was some kind of strange, weird relationship, and we heard things, and if they say, okay, well, that was a bear owl, or however you describe it, I would go on the Internet and check out every website I can find that had sound bites and listen to it. And then I'd say, I listened to that, and that's not what we heard. I'm not saying that couldn't be, but I'm saying that's not what we heard, you see? So a lot of things that we were hearing, whether it was the monkey chatter or the strange conversations or the sounds and things like that, was kind of, how do I say it, poo-pooed on?
Right.
Okay. So, and that got discouraging. That got discouraging. The last 2 weeks we were there, we told them point blank, take the cameras out. We don't want them here anymore.
Right.
And the whole atmosphere changed.
Yeah, they
immediately.
They know. They seem to know exactly where they are, and they don't take much chances with. They're very careful about trying to stay away from the camera's view, and
most things that way.
Most of the pictures, if you see any pictures of an alleged creature, it'll be like a partial arm or like a shoulder, or like it's trying to sneak up or something and get a look at the camera, but it's doing it from like the back side where maybe it triggered, depending on how wide the electric eye is that triggers the camera, it triggered as the thing was kind of sneaking up on it, and you'll just see like a close-up of a body part, but that's about all you get,
Well, the picture that was taken that was snapped by the trail camera, even though it was in the fog, From the waist down, you can't see it very well, hardly at all. But from the waist up, you can. I mean, you can see the arms and the shoulders and the chest and the no neck and the teeth and the eyes and the head shape very distinctively. Ears.
Right.
You know, so.
All right. How many you got left, Mike?
All right. We just had one more question that I saw, and then I'll double-check the chat.
Okay.
But this was the last one that I have copied down. This was from Ziram61, and this, she mentioned, Julie mentioned that for the possible entertainment of the creatures that might be watching through the window, that they used to watch, leave the TV playing, and that one of the things they used to play for them was the movie Harry and the Hendersons. So Ziram was asking, did Harry and the Hendersons work? Did it seem to, catch their attention?
I really don't know. I really don't think so. We live without a TV, but at that house we haven't had a TV for years. But at that house there was a big antenna, and we said, well, let's hook it up, and we hooked it up and got like 5 local stations or something, So we watch movies more than we want, not a television hookup. But again, I think that they were very interested in us and what we were doing, whether I was in the kitchen baking or, Lily, my granddaughter, was inside running around, or she was watching a movie, or she was playing, or whatever it was. They were very much outside the windows, the bedroom windows of my daughters, because of the singing and the piano playing and all that. That really attracted them. And whether you saw them or not, again, when you have this experience day in and day out for month after month after month, whether it's just 6 months or not, there's a feeling, there's a familiarity, if you want to say it that way, that you become aware of things,
right,
of their presence. And so there'd be a lot of times that you just knew that they were around. Gosh, I know I think I sound weird, but it's the truth. And
I've heard that from other folks that have had, what they consider frequent visits and things.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it's not unusual.
They have distinctive personalities, I'm sure,
right,
like people do.
Oh,
so
sure.
You do become kind of familiar,
right,
with some of their presence. So,
right,
yeah.
All right. Any more, Mike? Did you scan through there? Did you get it all?
Yeah, that was it. I scrolled back up a ways, and I did not see any other questions, so that was the last question.
All right. I'm about to reveal something to you, Julie, that that happened during the show. I'm not going to name names because the person hasn't confirmed whether they want their name mentioned, but I have been sent an audio clip, apparently of some recordings that occurred on your property.
Okay.
But of course, I ain't got no way to upload it. You can't. It's difficult to upload anything while you're doing the show, so I won't be able to do that. And I'm not going to name the person because they've never confirmed that they want their name mentioned. So
male or female? Male.
It's male.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Okay. So, but yeah.
Well, I'm glad
anyway.
he's listening. So I'm glad he's listening.
Right. So we may choose to, like when we open up the show next week or something, we might just play that and just kind of remind everybody.
Mm-hmm.
About this week's show, and just so that everybody can hear it. And
okay, well, with no names, he was very helpful during that time, and he did come up once or twice.
Right.
So he was.
But I will let you know that one thing that they mention is that because this doesn't really reveal anything. Mm-hmm. They said that they were sitting in the shadows in the driveway, holding a bionic ear. And they said that they believe they, Sasquatch, were approaching the house. And they said since we were just outside the light from the house, we were not detected right away. And I believe they were wood knocking to announce our presence. So that is the audio that they sent us, is these wood knocks. So we'll kind of share that with everybody. We open up the show next week, and
wow,
and should be interesting. So.
Oh, great.
But
well,
anyway, Julie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well,
really
you and
it.
Mike made it very easy for me, and it went
very quickly. Well, you made it easy for us.
That was great.
Worked out just fine.
You know which organization. We're off of the air and off the everything now.
Well, no, it's still being archived.
Yeah, it's recording.
I won't tell you.
Yeah,
I won't. As long as you're recording, I'm not going to say nothing.
Yeah.
But I think you are pretty smart. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay. So.
And you can always send it to me in email anyway.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll keep it a secret. But
all
right. Well, Julie, again, thanks a lot for taking the time out of your evening to share all that with us, and definitely let us know once the book's coming out.
I will.
Send me an email with if it's going to be sold on Amazon.com or wherever.
Yes, it will be.
Just let us know, and we'll announce it on the show so that everybody has the opportunity to get the book. And
thank you very much. I have a question for you two, really quick.
Okay.
You get the OregonBigfoot.com blog, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So did you a couple weeks ago hear what Autumn said? Boy, it's got my curiosity up. She said she's learned more in the last 2 months than she has in the last 20 years because she's working with a long-term witness, but she's not revealing anything yet.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's too exciting. I can't wait to hear.
I know.
Do you know? Do you have any info that I don't know?
I have no info on it.
Okay.
She's not sharing it. So.
Not even with you?
No.
Okay.
No,
All
I'm
right.
not that important.
Well, that's going to be very
exciting. Now, Mike might be that important.
Oh.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to know. I was just too excited about that. So, thanks, guys.
I'm sure she'll reveal it when she's ready. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much, Julie.
Okay. Right. Talk to you again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks,
Julie.
Mike. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
All right, Mike, that's another one under the wraps.
Yeah, wrapped up another show.
So it was a pretty exciting show tonight. I think it all went pretty good. So, but we'll share that audio with everybody. It should be kind of interesting. Something to
we had a good amount of questions from the chat, and there was people chit-chatting, the crosstalk that's always there about things that she was mentioning on the show. Which is good to see that they're. Because there's always the off-topic banter that goes on all through the chat, but it's good to see, people actually having on-topic chat, about the guest and about what she's talking about, or he or she at the time is talking about. And it's always good to see that they're paying attention.
Yep, that's true. Very true.
They spend a good part of the show, poking fun at each other and having a good time, which is great too, But it's nice to know that they're actually paying attention to what's going on too.
Yes, it is. Well, Mike, you have a good week. I will see you next Monday night. And hopefully everybody else will come and join us next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have another great guest on the show, and we'll do it all over again.
Looking forward to it, Billy, and glad to hear that you're on the mend and feeling much better, and won't be too much longer. Hope to meet you in the field.
Yep, sounds good to me.
All right.
All right. Good night, Mike, and good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, folks.
A legend passed down through the generations. A myth to some, reality to others. Thousands claim to have encountered this creature from all around the world. Footprints discovered, unidentifiable hairs collected, unusual sounds recorded. Something is out there. Sasquatch Watch Radio. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. on the Blog Talk Radio Network, interviewing the men and women researching this phenomenon, the latest news and information, research techniques, and cutting-edge technology. True terrifying encounters as told by those who have experienced them. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, on the Blog Talk Radio Network. Your host, Billy Willard of Sasquatch, Virginia, brings you the most riveting discussions on the internet today. blogtalkradio.com/Sasquatch Radio. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, Sasquatch Radio. The truth is out there. Welcome to Sasquatch Radio.
There's more to your story. More pages, new chapters. You can feel it. And now you're ready to grow. Laurel Ridge Community College is ready for you. Your real-world experience gives you an important head start. And with training, degrees, and certificates for the careers that are most in demand, you can do more, earn more, and advance more. Turn the page and start your story. Grow with us at Laurel Ridge. Visit laurelridge.edu/pathways.